The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
I'm choosing to ignore the cuts and bumps and bruises. I'm cruising through these haters, leave them looking stupid. They foolish if they think they'll ever hear my conclusion. I'm through with all these part-timers and their excuses. I'm bruising eagles left and right every time I do this. I'm shooting for the top, no I'll never settle where you did. The future's in my hands, my grip will never loosen. My crew is ready to obtain the absolution, removing any doubt that we were ever fooling.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to another kick-ass episode of Still Toking with. Yeah, you already know who I am, so it's just that simple. But the man that we all love, the flashy one himself, Mr. Jeffrey Mark.
Hi-ho, everybody. I'm excited because our guest is enormously interesting and very pretty. So I'm looking forward to an hour of pretty interesting stuff.
Wow, I like how you played on the words there.
You think I was a professional?
Almost.
Almost. Not quite.
And of course, the man that's always in my head. And in the last two shows, he hasn't said anything off screen to get into my head, which is weird. I think he's slipping a little. Jeffrey.
No. Yeah, I don't know if it's me, but this seems to be running a little choppy.
Yeah, I think it's you.
Maybe it's me.
Because I'm watching it live
I
over
don't
here.
know how. Yeah. I don't know how that's possible, but
I don't know.
let's take a
Maybe
look.
the computer needs to be refreshed.
Oh, it was.
Okay.
It certainly was.
Yeah.
No, I'm paying good, so
Yeah, I don't
All
know,
right.
maybe. Well, it's just you live in Halifax. It's close to the fucking Bridgewater Triangle, so there's always some weird shit happening.
well, it is that, plus it's fucking Comcast, and
Yeah,
they could be out there messing with lines. We get a lot of construction going on around here, actually, in Halifax.
Yeah. They build
my
them
water's
themselves.
I hope so, for all of these people that are coming into the town that have no place to go. Now they're building these. I think they're 50 plus or retirement buildings, but I mean they're right on the
perfect.
street. Yeah, maybe I'll take a look at them, but damn, they're expensive. But anyway, enough about that. I'm looking forward to chatting with our little buddy here. I haven't seen him in a couple of years.
I know. I'm super excited about tonight's show.
Yeah, I didn't know he did half the fucking shit he did.
Right?
I'm pretty blown away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just thought he was some big wig that smoked a lot of weed.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I was pretty impressed with the beard thing he's got going on now too.
Right?
Because the last time I saw him, it was like way up here. You could tickle his nuts. I think it goes off screen.
That's my job.
So yeah, let's bring him right in, Mr. Leon Drucker, Master Leon Drucker.
Howdy.
He says howdy. He did not know what to say. He was just like, yeah, howdy. Oh,
hey, that was a hell of an introduction right there.
Right? I mean, seriously, we literally met you 6 years ago. You were doing some other stuff at the time, and we had just launched what we were doing, and we became really good friends. We had a lot of interesting conversations. But shit, man, I did not, like Jeff just said, I had no fucking clue the amount of things that you actually were involved with outside of, what we're going to get into tonight. So, yeah, I mean, I was floored. I'm like, why haven't we had this guy on the fucking show sooner? Like, hello.
I always knew, Leon, that you were, into the martial arts stuff and all that kind of shit. But
right
to that extent, I was like, holy fuck.
Well, look at the serene look on his face. That comes from.
Are we on yet?
Oh yeah, we're live.
Wow.
So right before we went live, Mr. Jeffrey Mark, we were talking a little bit about some of the books that Leon has put out, some of the
I was talking
the novels,
author to author here, and
yeah.
I was wondering, when you've got so many books published over a period of time, were they all with one publisher? Did you self-pay? How has your authorship started and grown through the years?
Well, when I first started writing, I was writing training manuals for my students. So it was all martial arts related. And so I started just publishing on Amazon. I self-published and put them on Amazon so that people could buy them. And then when I started writing the novels, I started looking for getting a literary agent and going the traditional route. And the more I learned about what the traditional route really is in terms of queuing a book in and getting the right people, where it could literally take 2 years before you're in print.
Yeah.
Plus making under $1 a book, I started looking at alternatives, and I found that there were companies that did print on demand and also, I guess pay to play, so you could use your own money to spend on marketing, and then I just figured I could do most of this stuff myself. I did originally come from a tech background, so that's what I did. So I'm using Ingram Spark, and I built my own website where I have links to the books so people can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I have worldwide distribution for the ebooks. Some of them are audiobooks now as well, and so it just I make more money and I have more control over everything and don't have to answer to somebody that is plugged into the market a certain way to capitalize the most. So my novels were written because I felt that a couple of things. One, my first novel, Warriors of Wisdom, I had a lot of students coming back from Afghanistan, and they had a lot of problems, and a lot of it was in the morality of what they were doing. And so what I did is I used a reference of one of my favorite books to keep going back to, which is the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's an epic book from India. that's thousands of years old, but it's written in a way that is very difficult for a contemporary reader to understand, or even to be able to follow, to get the message that it tells, which is based in Hinduism. But it's kind of like, you know, you're doing your duty, and it's out of your hands anyway, so that the guilt that people feel for what they had to do during wartime maybe could be alleviated by the message from the Bhagavad Gita. So I wrote a contemporary story based on a helicopter pilot in India, or an Indian, but he was in Afghanistan, and instead of being on the chariot with Krishna, he's a helicopter pilot, and Krishna plays his co-pilot. So again, trying to tie it to the guys that I was trying to reach out to. So that was what kind of, and I'm like, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm learning as I go, and that's what led to just keep writing.
Leon, can I ask a sort of a dogleg question? The book you're referencing, from my point of view, has so many universal truths and knowledges in it. Why hasn't there been a good translation written in contemporary English so that someone with
like
at least a high school, like someone with a high school education, sorry, Jeff, that someone with an education, you don't have to be in college or have a PhD, but could understand all the wonderful goodies in the book?
Well, I mean, it's a massive body of work.
No, I know.
And you would really need a scholar to do that. But now that we have online resources, somebody that is interested can find websites where the book is loaded, and you can read what other experts say are the interpretation of what's happening in the story. And so if you do have an interest, you can look that book up, and you find a lot of references and interpretations. Just nobody has put it all together, or perhaps they have at this point, but in a modern way. That's why I think a contemporary story that the veterans could relate to would be easier. Also, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know any young people that are reading anymore.
Unfortunately, yes.
And when I was, you know, even in high school and throughout college, I was like always had 3 or 4 books that I was reading at the same time for enjoyment, plus reference books and things, because we didn't have the internet, and so the resources were up to you. And so I want to write in a way that is understandable and interesting for, you know, young readers, or perhaps not so young, that got away from, you know, from reading because they're on the toilet looking at Facebook or whatever. So
right.
Is that the demographic that you're trying to focus on?
No, but I'm acutely aware of it while I'm writing. Some of the earlier books, the criticism was like, I don't know those words. And I couldn't follow along. You know, I wrote books, basically took the Tibetan Book of the Dead and wrote a book about that. And I tried to dumb it up as much as possible and cut it into like just a 65-page book that, you know, and just still, it was too hard to follow. So I really needed to tweak my writing style so that it was a modern story, and kind of hide some of the lessons a little bit to allow people to discover it that way.
You know, you may have already done this. Yeah. Jeff, you have seniority. You go first.
I was going to say, you know, in today's world, it's almost kind of like, if you want to write a book, you got to write it in text format so that these people can understand it, because it's all shorter words. It's little acronyms for everything. I'm surprised nobody's actually written a book like that.
Right.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
you know what? I think like what you guys have done with the comic books, that might be something to think about, is making these comic book length from novels that are the types of things that we enjoyed reading, you know, through high school and you know, our early 20s or whatever. And I think you might find that would be they'd be able to follow along with that.
Well, it's got pictures. Of course they can.
Yeah.
Well, it's that. Plus, I mean, no offense to anybody out there, but a lot of people today have the attention span of a gnat.
What?
So when you get into a 300-page book, it's tough for a lot of these people because they're so instilled in instant gratification, and I use TikTok. You're just scrolling through and scrolling through, and you watch something for a couple of minutes and it's on to the next. Today's world, I think that you might be onto something there with the comic book idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know, a comment and then the question I was going to ask. With more conventional publishers, they give you rules. No paragraphs more than like 4 sentences. No compound sentences, no complex sentences. Dumb it down, because that's not my writing style. I've had to adapt to that in order to get books published, because the reading level of the folks out there, even the ones who do read and love the kind of books I might write or Leon might write, but their reading level isn't anywhere near what it used to be, and you have to, unfortunately, service the people who will actually spend the dollars on the books.
Yeah.
But Leon, I was going to ask you, I have to ask the question, get out of my system.
Go ahead. All right.
Because of your style, sir, and your insights, because I like you already, I would think a book like The Prophet would be a wonderful jumping for one of your novels to turn The Prophet into.
Well,
you know the book I'm talking about.
Thank you. Yeah, the last book that I wrote, Nahar, is basically Khalil Gibran's Prophet, and I made it all short stories. So each of the topics is a 5,000-word chapter that somebody could literally read in 15 or 20 minutes, and it's complete within itself. So if you're not used to reading like an hour or more, a night, you literally can, get through that and get something to be able to think about later after finishing reading it, and go back to it again and again to find more of the things that are within the story.
So
I like that.
Your different books, do they follow the same sort of theme, or you've taken something that means something to you and fictionalized it for the folks out there?
Well, when I start writing, I start thinking about who I'm trying to reach, and so the stories will be relatable to that group. Again, I'm going to kind of go quickly through, and then we can dive deeper into whatever you'd like. But so after Warriors of Wisdom, I wrote a book called Emily Herds an Ox. May not mean anything to most people, but if you know anything about Zen Buddhism, there's a very famous set of 10 ox herding pictures that take you through the levels of enlightenment. Where the first block print, he's looking for his ox, and ox means finding self. And so I use that as a format, but the woman, Emily, works in a big company. She's a software engineer working in a company, and I wanted to not just talk about Zen Buddhism, but what does it affect when you start becoming present and mindful, and some of the lessons that we get from Buddhism. And how does it affect your family, your friends, your coworkers? How does it affect how you perform your job? How does it change your company and, your community? So that's what I wanted to show, that it's not just about I can sit and meditate and it's good for me, but it's also good for your community. And so that was my motivation for writing that book. After that, I wrote, I think it's an interesting book.
I hope so.
Alternate Personalities of a Cosmic Mind.
Yeah.
Now, that book is really about cosmic consciousness, but what motivated me to write it was reading a study that was done in London. Are you guys familiar with the DMT study that was done in London a year or so ago? What they did is they took volunteers, and instead of just letting him inhale a couple hits of DMT. They hooked him up to an IV for an hour.
Oh.
Now, the time kind of changes when you're in that world. And what they wanted to study was not the experience, but the belief that it was actually taking you to alternate dimensions. Not that it was just something that was affecting your brain and you were tripping out and it was all inside it. Literally, they found that there was a lot of commonality with some of the things that you were seeing in common with everybody else. And the fact that when you pass, your brain is flooded with DMT. And so they're looking at this as possibly the death experience, and that you do go somewhere. And
just
so
just for our folks who are enjoying this tremendously, like I am, tell them what DMT is. We have some definitions.
All right, it's a chemical compound that's produced in our brain. We make a lot of it when you're born to help brain development, and then also they found that when you pass, that it just floods your whole system at the moment of death. And you could describe it as a hallucinogen. I think it's something much more than that. And unfortunately, a lot of people, like any drug or medication, can abuse it. But when you start looking at, a serious study like what they did in London, and they're looking at other studies now, not that weren't as big as that. They're finding that there's these I don't know if you want to call them allies or beings that are in this realm that come and talk to you and tell you what the meaning of life is and what is death, and all these messages that you're getting that allow you to basically, the ego dies, but that's it. Everything else is who you are. And the basis for this book is talking about this cosmic consciousness, that there is only one consciousness. That's the universe. All of us are alternate personalities, but we have the illusion of separation. So we're all the same inside, just experiencing life through a different lens so the universe can experience itself.
That explains a lot.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Seriously fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, totally. Wow. So how did they do this? I mean, you said it, the body produces it. So how did they produce it for the study?
Well, it's a chemical, so you can just make the chemical. Back in the 70s, when I was in my ute, the best way is the type that's made by a particular frog. And so, like, how witches like put a frog in a magic pot or something, but literally, like, licking these frogs could could put
okay, the frog licking. Now I get it.
Yeah, they call that bufo, but it's just another type of chemical that's made in the skin of the frog. But yeah, it's something that you can synthesize, and that's what they do. It's not something that
like
you can't take like a tab of it unless it is the frog serum.
Okay, all right.
So
it's not like peyote then.
Get a vape now and just hit the vape a couple of times, and you're off for 30 seconds or so. But that's why through IV. That's So
is it
that would be under for an hour with an IV? It would be equivalent to like years.
Wow. So again, for our friends out there who aren't educated about this, it is more similar to something like LSD than it would be to like hashish or peyote, or that was Jeff's question.
I really can't answer that correctly. If you think about cannabis, the effects of cannabis, how it there's receptors within our brain that allow the cannabinoids to bind for that experience. But there's also a lot of health benefits because our body has a cannabinoid system. These guys know quite well. And so, that's more like a plant medicine to me. When you start looking at, LSD, mescaline, this type of stuff, you're looking at an entirely different type of a chemical reaction in the body, because it's not something that's on all the time balancing us. There may be very minuscule amounts, but you're familiar with ayahuasca.
Yes.
So one of the plants in ayahuasca is basically DMT, but because DMT can't be digested through your digestive system, they mix it with other plants that then allow you to then drink the ayahuasca and have that experience. So a DMT trip would be similar to an ayahuasca experience.
Okay.
Wow.
Let's continue with the books.
Right.
I'd love to hear more.
So real quick, as Leon takes a drink here, if anybody's interested in any of the books that we discuss here tonight or anything about Leon, just check the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching and listening to us. All his information is there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so again, all the books, like first I had a motivation to reach just out to somebody that may not otherwise have read the journals or had read, books that are thousands of years old and been able to study them long enough and figure out what's going on. So that was my motivation. Of course, that's not super popular when you're trying to deal with a company that's trying to maximize their profits. So I got really turned off when I started reaching out to literary agents to work with me. And that's the first step. You don't just go to a publisher, as you know, Jeff. You have to have an agent and
sell it for you.
When you're trying to work with an agent, you send them an email, or there's places online to reach them, and it's like, all right, in 10 pages and a 2-paragraph synopsis, tell me why I should be interested in your book. And I found that pretty impossible. So I did
the damn book.
Huh?
Just tell them to read the damn book.
Yeah, but they don't. They're literally getting thousands of emails a week, and they're trying to pick the romance novels and the ones that are going to have people reading on the beach or whatever that are going to be popular. So there's just not a big market. There is a good market, but it's not big enough for the publishers right now.
And the publishing world has changed. I'll do this in less than a minute.
Absolutely.
Once upon a time, editors and publishers had the right to buy books on behalf of their imprint because they were sold and they liked them, they bought them, there was a contract, off you went. They're no longer allowed to do that because, like all other kinds of corporate stuff, there's only like 3 corporations left making books, and each of those 3 owns all the imprints that are out there. So once a month, each imprint, their editors meet in a meeting and they fight to try to sell one of the books they'd like to get published. So the chances of getting published now are much smaller, and you don't have a guy or a woman like Jackie Onassis who's just like on fire for you and your book to push you. So even with a publisher, you're on your own, basically.
Yeah, and now since COVID, you have boutique agencies that are catering to people that want to be writers, and so you have that noise level increasing as well.
Yeah.
But there are places that do print on demand.
Yeah.
So somebody could go to their website, buy your book, and they will still get it rather quickly. That was the big appeal with Amazon. Mm-hmm. But again, I wanted to take the responsibility for marketing my book and giving my message and doing the cover that I wanted. And so I kind of have this hybrid way of publishing my books. And so it's a lot of work, and a lot of it's not fun because there's a salesy part to it. But I think it's accomplishing its purpose. And being able to be on a podcast like this where, can reach some other people that don't know who the hell I am, or all of a sudden they go like, that's something I wouldn't mind reading. So this is great to be able to have this platform, and I really appreciate it, guys.
Our complete pleasure. So your latest book, let's talk about your latest book.
Okay. So one of my favorite books, and it's a very small book, was written by Khalil Gibran, called The Prophet. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's just beautifully written. He's a Lebanese immigrant, and so there's some of the Sufism in there. And so like the normal way we would think of love between a man and a woman, it's in Sufi, a lot of it's love is expressed to God. It's like, so it's very romantic. And he talks about Gibran in his writing, he talks about the things that we all share in common: love, marriage, children, death, all the just
Life.
things that everyone can relate to, and in such a beautifully put way. I'll give you one of the examples. When you talk about children, like, again, I'm paraphrasing him, but one of the things he said is that children are not yours. They're through you. And you, like a living bow, shoot forth that arrow. And so that, just that little bit, and there's much, much more, but you can visualize how quickly that reaches most of us, is that, yeah, our kids, they aren't us. They come through us, and we want to see them land way farther than we landed. There's just so many metaphors that can be non-verbally communicated through a poetic phrase. And that's what attracted me to Gibran. And I've read that book many, many times. And so I said, well, let's get people reading, getting some of this just beautifully put language that he has. And so again, I said, let's do short stories so that somebody can read one chapter and get the chapter on children or the chapter on death or any of these types of topics. And so that was Nahar. Nahar is a Hebrew word. It means river, but in a metaphorical sense, like how life streams. And so all that stuff, not just like, water and running. It has more of the sense of what a river means.
The movement of life.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that is what throughout the book, I keep referencing the river. And I wanted to add some other stuff. I have some family in Israel, and I wanted to add in one of the horrific things that happened recently was the Hamas attack. So the main character of the book is a young woman who was in the Hamas attack and was captured and escaped. And it's her journey of finding wise people to help guide her and help her deal with the horrific situation she was in. Like, why did I get away and a lot of my friends died? And, all the people that committed suicide later that had gotten away because of the heavy burden that they were carrying. So I wanted to tell the story through her eyes. And instead of, and once she kind of got her education and traveled around, she would just seem to be at the right place at the right time to help people. But she did it through parable and storytelling rather than telling them what to do. And then I used some of the beautiful lessons from Gibran's work to illustrate the types of things that she was providing as a lesson for these people. And so, I mean, it really, the book to me is just, very heartfelt. And I think anybody that reads it will immediately relate to it because, again, it's told in a modern story. Read the book, and I think you'll enjoy it.
So I have a question. Do you feel as though a lot of your writing is to help people? Let me rephrase that. Your writing seems to be geared towards helping people. Do you think that's an extension of you as a person? Because we haven't even gotten into a lot of the other stuff that you're involved with, from, massage to holistic healings to all the other stuff that you actually do that helps people. Do you think the novel writing is the extension of that, like your next step, your next phase?
I don't think about it as helping people. I think about it as answering a question that we all have at some point in our life. When you become self-aware, you go like, why am I here? What is this all about?
Leon, Yeah.
Yeah,
you
I
just
see more enlightenment, and it's
Yes,
an enlightenment
yeah.
style, I think. Yeah.
Because when the thing is, there are a lot of people that live their life in fear,
Hmm.
and you need that's the same with the martial arts. All that is all based on getting somebody to lose their fear, helping somebody lose their fear. And
Leon, may I ask a slightly personal question? What is your ethnic background?
I'm Jewish.
All right, so I'm Jewish also. Happy Passover.
All right, so my father's family is from Romania, and my mother's family is from Hungary.
And I'm from Belarus and the Ukraine.
Okay,
So coming from Eastern European Judaism, I'm being terribly serious here.
that's okay.
Your awareness, says plural, are enormously wide and open. How did you coming from that background? How was your soul able to travel? Because the more you talk, the more respect I have for you, and I'm right with you in all the things you're saying. So help me figure that part out, because you're wonderful.
So thank
Is there
you.
a question in there?
It really was my father. So when I first, I don't know if I was like maybe under 10, I guess, and asking him these questions about like, why am I here and that type of stuff. And my father was the type of man that said, go look it up. Anytime I asked him a question, he would never answer me. He would say, go look it up. And we had encyclopedias and all kinds of reference books. And I remember distinctly when we were asked, I was trying to talk about this type of stuff, and he came home from work and he plopped this big, thick book down in front of me called The World's Great Religions. And it had everything in there from Sikhism to, just like everything you could think of.
Zoroastrianism and yeah.
Everything. And he said, when you're done reading it, we can talk about it. And so what I found in looking at all of these dozens of different religions, they all had a lot in common. They really weren't different. If you kind of look for the commonality, the same thing with people. If you look for what's common, you're going to see there's a lot more in common than what divides us. And I felt that way about the religions. And so I kind of started going down the path of really digging into ones that interested me at the time. And so this is like in my early youth, I had a cousin who was traveled worldwide. She was into meditation. She was like a beatnik, and back in the day in New York, in the Village, right?
Right.
She would visit, and she'd be sitting there, and we'd be eating dinner, and her and her boyfriend, and they're eating my grandmother's pea soup. And they're like, I'm watching them, and they're like, it's taking a long time to get to their mouth. But they're like putting it in their mouth, and then they're like, not just eating it, but they're experiencing it. And to a young, impressionable guy, I'm like, what is happening here? And I was experiencing them being present. And it was like magic. A light bulb went off, and then I'm like, it's like, yeah, I definitely need to kind of understand how to do this stuff. So I started doing yoga at a young age, and it just kind of led me down the path with Hinduism. Later on, I got into all this other stuff. And later in life, I really said, well, what about my own roots in Judaism? And I started studying more. Like at the end, after I studied all this other stuff, is really trying to understand what Judaism was all about. So I think it was due to my father not telling me the answers, but making me find them for myself.
I'm falling in love with you, Leon. Just
Watch out, Leon.
I'm going to ignore all of that. No, because this is personal to me. Coming from a similar kind of background. Now, I didn't have anyone saying look it up or guiding me, but we've read some of the same books, you and I, Leon. And I was forced to start this kind of a travel when I got clean and sober 36 years ago. And the boys knows and our fans know that I do not talk against getting high. Cannabis and other things have wonderful properties that are wonderful for lots of people. And I always say, transparency, I'm one of the founders of Marijuana Anonymous. But to help myself, because I have the disease, I had to form a Jeff spirituality that went beyond the teachings I heard of Eastern European Judaism. And I've walked some of the same paths. And I'm just sitting here. We're very different people and we have very different lives. Our commonality is blowing me away.
That's awesome.
I just wanted to share.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you for
And
sharing.
I'm sitting here listening, and I'm like, pretty impressive, Mr. Mark. Pretty impressive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I knew Mr. Mark was impressive. I'm actually sitting here going, holy shit, Leon. Like, wow.
Just
Okay.
having a conversation, you've
Yeah.
touched one person today. So
That's-
yeah, hooray for us.
That we know of, right? There might
That
be
we know
somebody
of.
else listening to this.
Right.
So I'm gonna flip the subject a little bit, and when and why did you get into the martial arts?
Well, my father had a health club with his brother. So my uncle inherited from my grandfather, who, when he came from Romania, opened a Schwitz.
I
Right.
was just going to say that.
Eastern European men would hang out and get the steam bath and talk business, and so that's what they had, and that was in downtown Philadelphia. Next to that building, there was a judo club, and that I was very fortunate is that the instructor there, Professor Ishikawa, was the highest ranked judo instructor in the United States. They had brought him over to instruct the Air Force, and it just so happened that he was next door. And I was always small for my age, but also I had anger issues, and I used to fight a lot. And so, it was definitely worthwhile what the martial arts, what we're led to believe, if you're from outside the community, is that it teaches you discipline, right? Mm-hmm. So my father thought it would be good for disciplinary purposes and how to protect myself and all that. And so I would take the bus and then the subway downtown Philadelphia and take judo, and then go over to the health club, and then go home. My dad would drive me home. And I started, that was my birthday present for my bar mitzvah when I was 13. That was the present, was to start taking judo lessons. And now it's 60 years later. And I still have a school. I still teach classes throughout the week. And so it's just been a lifelong river for me that's connected a lot of aspects of my life and has helped me enormously. Back when kids, right, they didn't have ADD. It was like you were hyperactive, right? Mm-hmm. And so it helped me deal with that, and just confidence, and all the things that are surrounding that with traditional martial arts.
Nice. So you're still doing it, but are you teaching?
Yeah, I'm still teaching. I have my own school that is here in Milford. Right. Now, when I had to stop when I went into the military, and then after the military, that's a whole nother time for another podcast. But to put it light, I'll put it like a 30-second view on it. I was shooting a bundle of heroin a day, and so I needed to deal with that, and so I wound up driving a stolen car down to Miami. I mean, there's a whole adventure there for another book. Anyway, I wound up training with a Kung Fu master, and I trained with him for a number of years. That's where I learned Tai Chi from, and the Northern Shell and Kung Fu. And I actually was one of the first fighters in full contact fighting during that time. And so that was what I was doing for a long time, was teaching classes in Northern Shaolin and Tai Chi, and then wound up, after driving around the country in a 1955 International Harvester, wound up in New England, and met some guys that wanted to form something called the Hard Hit Black Belt Bodyguards for celebrity baseball and different things, and fell in with them. And one of the guys was starting to talk to me about some traditional Japanese martial arts, and through that I met who would become my teacher, and started training in pre-Meiji restoration Japanese martial arts, basically the samurai arts and all that stuff. And that's what I've been doing ever since. I even found a good way to get back and forth to Japan. So I started working for Hitachi and Sharp. And so they would fly me back and forth to Japan a lot. And so I was able to train in Japan for many, many years. And so that's primarily what I teach now.
Oh, that answered to like 8 questions.
Right? Right?
Leon, could you please speak to a word, because you are a living embodiment? Serenity of your spiritual beliefs and all the martial arts things you do. You glow serenely.
Well, I'm going to quote Somerset Maugham.
Please.
Razor's Edge. Are you familiar with that book?
Yes, sir.
So one of the things that he said in that book is, it's really easy to be a holy man up on the mountain.
Yes.
Right? So for me, I had to create a life in the woods in New Hampshire to step out from the pace. I also couldn't work for other people because of the pressures of doing what they want you to do. So I kind of worked towards freeing myself from a lot of the things that make it difficult to be able to live a life of meaning and grace.
Well said.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
I believe one of the goals us humans have in life is to find a way to live serenely, because we're not really raised or born that way. Serenity is something you work towards, and I think Leon is a wonderful example of that.
As long as there's not a logging truck in front of me going too slow.
So road rage is still out there, otherwise you're serene.
Right. Not like Jeff, where he just punches it and goes fucking by him.
Well, not downhill.
Wow. No, not downhill. You know.
For someone like me, Leon, who knows next to nothing about the martial arts, I mean, I know what the different kinds are, and I know the basics, but I don't know. Is there one of the many that are being taught by people that have touched your soul the most?
Well, a lot of the martial arts that you see in the United States are primarily combat sports.
Yes.
And so the motivation and the differences between that is that you're trying to dominate somebody to show your prowess. So it's not about self-control, it's about controlling somebody else.
Right.
And then you have some what we'll call maybe internal or energy types of martial arts that you may be familiar with, like Aikido, right? It's not very effective for fighting. It's more almost like a cult to me, but it's a metaphor for what's going on internally, and you're kind of doing it on the outside. And so most people don't have the opportunity to train in anything other than that. Doing combat sports, you're doing maybe Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or you're doing karate and to winning trophies, and you know, this type of stuff. And most of the classes are just filled with children whose parents want them to become disciplined and protect themselves, all the right reasons, but you know, they're not getting that because they're encouraged to win trophies and to raise through the ranks, etc. So I
know where they can get that, at your studio.
Pardon me?
They can get that at your studio.
I don't teach children.
You don't?
No, I have no children.
Okay. All right, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's one thing I can't do. With traditional martial arts that were used for war, the other big difference is that everything that we do in my school, Yofuan Dojo, it's a bujitsu, it's like the warrior arts. You have to deal with unforeseen circumstances. You have to deal with multiple attackers. your strategies have to be able to not just be one-on-one, but scalable to a battlefield or a war without, so that the thinking is very different. And our, just like modern military, you have weapon systems which are based around the sword or spear. So that's primarily what we're going to use is one of our weapons. And then if you don't have a weapon, then you have to be able to deal empty-handed, so to speak, against somebody who may be wielding a weapon. So again, the emphasis is very different. Although we do all the types of grappling that you would see in jiu-jitsu and all the striking that you would see in Muay Thai or karate, just the emphasis is about living and protecting what's dear to you rather than promoting your ability to dominate somebody else.
Is there not a confidence that grows out of that?
There is.
Yes.
And what's funny is, somebody will come to become a student. I like, why, what do you want to learn here? And they'll, I want to learn how to fight, or I like this or that, whatever reasons that they have. And over time, it changes as they mature and they lose their fear of, I want to learn how martial arts so I can protect myself. That goes away pretty quickly, within months, really. And people ask me, like, why are you still in the martial arts, practicing martial arts like 60 years later? And it really, for me at this point, it's the camaraderie. It's my friends that I train with in Japan, or the students that have been coming and training with me for over 20 years, some of them. And so that's what the reason I keep doing it is for that.
I think Jeff and Ben would be unhappy if I didn't flirt with you for at least half a second. So let me ask, so I'll take that into a real question. You're a very attractive man, and you give off wonderful masculine but serene vibes, which is a very rare combination. And you don't look anywhere. I mean, if you told me you were 43, I would believe you. Is that from the martial arts, your personal belief system, or the big combo of all that together?
Well, I'm going to be 73 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you look 43.
And I have to say it's genetics, unfortunately, because I have tried to abuse my body as much as possible when I was younger. So yes, I think certainly living a lifestyle of where you're eating healthy foods and you're under not the real heavy stress that kills people is a big help, but it's just genetics. So I'm sorry.
No. Just take the compliment.
Yeah, but don't you have a PhD in nutrition?
Yeah, that was another thing that I was interested in. So my father, my grandfather, my father did massage. The term pachik, what that means. So from an early age, I'd be there. My father would be in the Russian room, which was a really high temperature steam room. And, we had spent the weekend collecting brooms of oak leaves that were soaked in hot, soapy water. And the guys would be out there on the slab, and and my father would be working on them with these brooms that were of soapy hot water, scrubbing and doing cleansing, all this type of stuff that is typical to, Eastern European folk medicine. Even like growing up, like if you had an ear infection, my father would put ear candles, and like everybody, like, what, we never did antibiotics. We used inhalations of rosemary to clear our sinus. I just thought that was normal until I got, started getting into high school. So through that, I had an interest in massage, but I waited till I went through like midlife crisis to reinvent myself. And so I went and I started studying traditional Amma, which is a Japanese body work. Yeah. And I apprenticed myself to Mochizuki sensei. And so I learned, and that includes the chiropractic stuff that we'd think of in Western medicine, as well as the energy movements. It really appealed to me because it was very holistic approach to dealing with whole body medicine. And so I started doing that for a while, but that is very difficult on your body, because I would be working on somebody an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I had a private practice. I worked in the physical therapy department at a local hospital, and then I did, on-site work and all kinds of stuff like that at the same time. It just physically burnt me out. So I'm like, well, okay, what's next? And I've always been fascinated by how the body works. So I went back to school, and I eventually got my PhD in nutrition, which is, get to learn like things like how does our body make energy? And, there's a Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, and it's a series of things that are nutrients that come into play that allow our body to produce energy. And how does our blood sugar management work, and all these different metabolic processes. So it was really fascinating to me. And then I worked as a consultant for a lot of the major supplement manufacturers in the United States that produce professional level supplements. And so I would go around and I teach doctors how to use these supplements based on the type of drugs that they were prescribing. And while I was doing that, I would also meet with Blue Cross and all of the local HMOs and things, and try to educate them why they should pay for someone to go get chiropractic or go to a gym or go whatever. So I would, was doing that. And so I did that for a number of years. And I had a lucrative practice. I was triple dipping a lot of the times because I represented the companies that sold the diagnostic equipment, and I was representing companies that were selling supplements, and then I had my private practice. So I it was wrapped up pretty good for a bunch of years. And then I kind of looked to see where the cheese was going to be. And so I became an importer, and I started importing. I was up to like 40 metric tons a month that I had warehouses on the West Coast and East Coast. I was buying herbs in India and China and South America, and then selling them to, GMC and, all of the contract manufacturers. And I did that for a while, and then got burnt out working for Indian companies. And so that's when I really started writing.
Wow. I mean, you are the whole package. You are the
Right?
whole
That's what
fucking
my wife
package.
does all the time.
I wasn't talking about your package. Because you also have a degree in electrical engineering, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was kind of what I did early on. Sorry.
Oh, don't be.
Good.
Yeah, when I went to computer electronics school, while I was the year after graduating and then going into the military. And then when I got out of the military, after I got clean, I literally went cold turkey on this road trip to Miami. I started back in school, and I worked in an assembly line at a company called Burroughs that were making printers for the computer industry. And while I was making, I don't know, $4 an hour or whatever, I went to night school and started getting my degree. And the nights that I wasn't in college, I was at the Kung Fu school. So I was like a pretty busy guy.
Yeah.
And then I worked as an engineering tech, developing high power frequency regulators and working for different computer companies, and then eventually got hired by some consultants and worked for a bunch of consultants in that field. And then, so I had a pretty long career. At one point when I was working for Hitachi, it's just crazy now, the world that it was, but this is like in the 80s. My sales were like $2 million a month.
Wow.
So I was like, picture me now, but picture me having the guy come to the house with fabric so I could have him make the suits for me and shirts for me and whatever I wanted, kind of stuff. And I was driving a brand new Jaguar XK convertible. And yeah, I was like, had that whole life too.
Custom made jock straps. It's amazing.
Yeah. But I did. I went through a crisis where yes, I'm making a lot of money, but it's not who I am. And I made a giant bonfire, and I burnt all of my suits, my ties, my shoes, belts, everything, and then didn't cut my hair or or my beard for like years after that, and I just like, okay, I'm free of that now. And
Yeah, you need to take new pictures how you are now, because you are just styling with that beard. That's amazing.
Right? Holy shit.
Oh, he's shy. I'm sorry.
You got him
Woody over
blushing.
there.
next time I'll put it in braids for you.
Uh-oh.
Thank you. I'll pay extra for that.
Oh my.
Nice.
Holy crap. So yeah, I mean, holy shit. We've chewed through that hour, but there's just so much we haven't even touched on. It's insane.
I wanted to ask you about what was it called? Getting in touch.
Yeah, that was the first company that I formed. And what again, because of the business background and just the way I think, I started going into these Fortune 500 companies, and I wound up hiring about a dozen massage therapists, and we would go into companies. The HR department would have us come in for like lunch breaks and stuff, and we would give certificates if like their employee of the month or whatever, they got free massage, and it just explained to them why they would actually, the employees would be happier, they'd have less sick days, and productivity would be better if they had, regular massages available instead of just a cup of coffee and a donut on their breaks. And that just blew up. Unfortunately, I didn't know that you shouldn't have a phone in your bedroom. But so it was just like working all the time, but that was getting in touch. And that was married to the company that I kind of was formed before that, called Medicine Hands Massage Therapy. So yeah, for a while it was all holistic health and trying to develop maybe a wellness center, and I was kind of down that road for a while.
Yeah, Ben and Jeff don't know that I am a trained masseur. I don't practice I haven't in decades, but there is something spiritual, healing, the exchange of energy between the person getting the massage and the person giving the massage that I think has almost more benefits than the actual manipulations of muscle and skin.
I agree with you, but also it's a big lesson in boundaries, because you don't want their shit on you. So you have to have some way to deal with, just like barbers and bartenders, they're getting dumped on. And so you're getting all this energy off of somebody while they're talking, and what you're picking up off of what the body has all this memory of trauma.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's really important to have some ritual to cleanse yourself of that.
It's why I stopped, because I'm an empath, and I was just soaking up, and it's like it was just overload for me.
Yeah, it was very difficult.
I could see that.
Yeah, when I got done my day, I would, before I even walked in the house, I would use kosher salt, and I'd rub my hands in kosher salt. Then I would take a sauna. So I built a sauna in the back of my house so I could just sweat some of the stuff out. But yeah, you pick up a lot of bad stuff off of people. So, and again, that's why I was saying it's a very difficult life. That's why mostly women do it as well. They're able to handle that easier than most men do. But yeah, it's a very needed, but our culture, I don't think, appreciates it like some of the other cultures. What's funny, when I told my martial arts instructor that what I was doing, and again, the term is ama, he's like, "What? You're not even blind." That's what he said to me. Because in Japan after World War II, that's what they did. They trained, and it was like goes back even before then, back to the Meiji period, that blind people, they wanted to educate them to do something, so a lot of them were massage therapists.
Okay.
16 punchlines, and I'm not going to go for any of them today. How about that?
I'm almost impressed. I'm almost impressed.
Out of respect to Leon.
So, with
Leon,
that,
if people want to get your book autographed from you, if you believe in that kind of thing, the information that Ben's going to put up, they can just reach out to you and get it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I have access to books. That would just mean I'd have to mail them the book. but they have my contact information is on my website, leonisaacdrucker.com. It's ISAAC. But you really just need to type in Leon Drucker in any search engine, and you'll find a lot of stuff. And they'll be able to reach me either through the dojo, my business phone, email. It's all out there, and I'd be honored to autograph and mail somebody a book.
Well, I can tell you one copy that's going to be going out soon.
All right.
Yeah, and I need to read your latest book that's about the prophet. I need to read that.
Well,
You definitely enjoy that, I'm sure.
That's the one I'm talking about, because that's about my attention span.
Yeah, it's
I'll pick one. Yeah, I'll pick one and start with that, and we'll go from there.
It's hard.
If it's any good.
I'm a victim myself of the phone, and so you can imagine somebody that doesn't have the discipline to force themselves to read something. It's just too easy to just use your phone and look stuff up, or use social media and just believe whatever is that algorithm is telling you what you believe. So it's very difficult. And so most people, even if you had a good attention span, it's greatly reduced now. And
right.
Yeah, so I think a smaller, like 5,000 words, it's not a lot to read in one time, and you get a whole story. So I think that now I'm working on a new book. It's actually looks like it's going to be a series of books. That's going to be probably 7 months, I'm guessing, before that's available. And that's going to be more like an epic, like Lord of the Rings kind of story. That's just going to be epic mythology kind of a book that will, you're going to require a little bit of work and to put some reading time in. But I think a lot of people enjoy those types of books. So it's about after the fall.
Really?
The global warming has caught up with us. The polar ice caps have melted. The caldera under Yellowstone has blown. Solar flares. I mean, it's as bad as it can get.
Wow.
And that's when the book starts.
That's actually really cool. So you said about 7 months before that is ready to hit.
It takes about 6 months to write a book, and then depending on how much editing I have to do,
Right. Well, I was just doing my mathematics with my digits here. So that puts us like right about January of next year, which is perfect because Jeff and I and Jeffrey Mark has joined us starting this year. We do a New Year's Eve episode where we come on and we bring back past guests from different seasons, and we give them about 15 to 20 minutes to update all our viewers and listeners, like what's new, what's happening, what's going on. And I think that'd be perfect, because if you're going to be launching that book right about the same time, we should get you back on New Year's Eve just to give everybody an update of the new book as well.
That'd be awesome, because New Year's Eve is for amateurs.
Yes.
I'm staying home.
Us old people stay home now.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, now we do a
amateur
show.
night has got nothing to do with age.
But you know my daughter Maya.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
So New Year's
Kevin's
Eve,
actually in the chat right now.
Hey Kev. So when she was she had been traveling. She was a snowboard bum up in Vermont for a while, but she came home, and we decided we're going to do a very quiet New Year's Eve celebration, just our me and her. And then she's like, can I have a couple friends over? I'm like, as long as they're close friends that I know.
There she is in the chat.
So we were going to do a sweat lodge. And so that turned out to be another story. You should ask Maya about that New Year's party. But yeah, so even if your best intentions are to have a nice quiet evening at home, relaxing, sometimes it gets pulled sideways.
I love the last name, Joli Coeur, which is happy heart. That's yay.
Right.
That's
So
nice.
so
Did they just join, or they've been on for a while?
I don't know if they've been on, but they just commented. So they're sneaky like that. They might have been watching part of the show, but they weren't saying anything.
Well, you know, Maya's a ninja, so she, you know.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. You got to watch out for her. She's sneaky.
Right.
And Kevin,
So,
Kevin probably didn't want to say anything because he didn't want any competition between me and Jeffrey Mark because I see Kevin and he gets the biggest hug and then I dry hump his leg and we're good.
basically.
I use lube, but we each have our own parts.
Wow.
So,
So,
I'm sorry,
Leon,
go ahead.
Have you considered doing like book signings at local places? and
Yeah, I've
stuff?
started
Is there any way
reaching
you can
out.
do that?
So I've checked into some of the local bookstores that are not the big franchises, but I mean, of course, I'm on Barnes and Noble and all those places, but there's some local independent bookstores that I would really like to support. So I've started reaching out to them about a New Hampshire artist coming by, doing a reading from one of the books and doing some signings and stuff, but I haven't gotten much response yet. But yeah, I'm actually very interested in doing that.
That's actually not a bad idea, Jeff.
Well, plus they have those book shows.
Well, we know
cons.
we know a shitload of authors.
Yeah, actually, we do.
It wouldn't be that hard because Leon's not very far from us. I mean, Jeffrey, we need to get your stuff updated so you can fly. But we could put together something, small with, 10 or 15 local authors and just do a haul, have people. I mean, everybody knows Leon in the industry around here.
Right.
Everybody knows Leon.
Right. And there are events out there that do that.
They do.
I don't know where they are. But
well, that's
I know
part of it.
there.
It's like you have to be invited to them, and you got to go through this like vetting process, and I don't fucking have time for that.
And I have a publicist, so if I'm involved with it, the word will get out.
Well, right. Harlan's a great publicist.
Yes, he is.
But that might not be a bad idea to entertain. We could find something midpoint between us and where he is, and we JJ Alo and all these other amazing authors that are around here. And if Mr. Marks can get his birth certificate and shit in line so he can fly.
Yes, Daddy.
Fucking drive, you pussy.
Oh, that's a long fucking drive, man.
Yeah, I've done that several times. That's not happening anymore.
I'm just thinking. I mean, it would be pretty cool because we have the novel out. I mean, you've got a lot more novels, but we're looking to do stuff.
Collaboration is the name of the game.
Well,
so
right.
I'm happy to do whatever I can to support that.
Yeah, and I think it would be a really great, thing because you don't even have to charge a door fee. Well, you kind of do if you're renting a lodge or something, but I'm sure we could find a place to do it that would be more than happy to have a bunch of authors.
Even like talk to the guys at the Harvest Cup about like having a space there. They got the upstairs or something like that. Something like that might work.
Might work is Expo Canna.
So any of those places
Expo Canna might work. If we should talk to Wes about maybe doing like an author's aisle almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, there were other people there that did books too. One or two, I think.
Yeah, there were a couple, but most of them were cannabis related.
It was straight out cannabis books.
It was straight out cannabis related, but where you get multiple genres in that mix, I think it would be a really good mix. And actually, who's the company that did the inebriated art? Inebriart. The ones that did the
not inebriated, yeah, inebriated.
Well, because it was at a freaking brewery.
It's at a pub, yeah.
Well, it was at a brewery.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of authors there too. We could reach out to them. They're local. They would do something like that.
Done.
Yeah, let me know if you need my help with anything.
Oh, absolutely. But we are chewed up some time. We're over by time, and Mr. Holman's probably getting fucking hungry up there. I can see his face starting to turn red. He doesn't.
Yeah, actually, the wife
he doesn't
just got
have
home,
a Snickers. So, with that being said, Mr. Mark, any last questions for our amazing guest this evening?
How long did it take you to grow your beard that long?
I actually shaved last night, so I'm surprised that you think it's long.
Where'd you shave?
Too easy, too easy, too easy.
You know, when you got the manly essence that I do, it just grows like that.
Leon, when you got the manly essence, you've got mine grows like that.
Wow.
Oh,
All right. So I'm going to answer my own question, but I know you have, what, 2 dogs?
yes,
Yes. And what kind are they?
they're Presa Canario. So everybody knows what a cane corso looks like, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So cane corso is like the Italian Mastiff, I guess.
Mhm.
So this is the Spanish version that comes from the Canary Islands. So
Okay.
they are, depending on which island and what they were bred for, cattle, dog, or guarding or whatever, they're kind of a little different, but they kind of have that same look. So my male is 180 pounds. That thinks he's, the size of a Chihuahua. And I made a really bad mistake with him by letting him sleep on the pillow behind my head when he was a baby, so yeah. And plus, and the female, she's a lot smaller, but the problem is that because of the type of work that I do, they're just Velcroed to me. So it's just codependence on both sides. So yeah, they're a lot of work, but they're my best friends.
Excellent.
Excellent. So was that your question, Mr. Holman?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about his dogs.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to cut you
If you
off.
go onto my Facebook,
I see
that's
the pictures.
almost
I
all
see
you
the
see on
pictures, yeah.
Instagram and Facebook are pictures of my dogs.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
true that.
But
I mean,
do
I had
you
a hell of a
like- do
time
you
trying
like
to find a
cats?
picture of you.
Yeah. Do you like cats? No?
Oh, I think my screen froze up for a second.
Oh,
Jeff
I-
asked if you like cats or not.
Yeah.
I
Do you
don't
like-
dislike cats, but
Yeah,
I
okay.
like dogs. I prefer dogs.
All right.
We
So
can do the Colbert questionnaire if you want.
So with that, I'm going to wrap this show up, seeing how, Leon's starting to freeze up. He's in the middle of the woods and it literally just got internet 2 months ago,
Right.
so he had to fire all the friggin' squirrels, so, but
And
Leon,
I made him blush twice, so my job is done.
you did, Leon. You've got the new website, which people can find in the show notes up above or down below. But when you do interact with people on social media, where do you prefer to interact with them?
Doesn't matter to me.
Oh, okay. Well, that was easy.
Yeah, wherever you find me, that's fine. You can. Most of my contact information is on Facebook, Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter and all that stuff.
Well, all righty then. So make sure you check the show notes up above or down below, folks, depending on where you're watching or listening to us, to find out more about this amazing guest. So, Mr. Jeffrey Mark, Mr. Flashy, not so flashy tonight, but flashy.
Come on, look at this.
Oh, I saw the hat.
And the earring. Come on.
The earring's always there.
It's always a different earring, though. This is a new one.
Right? We have to get you one of the Seehee earrings, the Jennifer Seehee earrings.
I only wear clip-ons because my ears are not pierced. All right.
Our guest last week, Jennifer.
Yes. Well, I'm still waiting to hear. So yes, I'd love one.
Oh shit, that was my fault. I was supposed to connect you guys. My bad. I dropped the balls.
Quite all right. Anyway, to ask the question you haven't answered yet, I have another podcast, Jeffrey Mark Plays Ella, that can be heard only at the moment on just about every platform you can think of and on 3 radio stations around the U.S. We are already recording a new video version of the show. We haven't released it yet, and I will announce it here when we are about to go, not live, but live with the video from now on. And I'm on Facebook, Jeffrey Mark. I'm on Instagram, Jeffrey Mark Showbiz. And, I'm on lots of guesting, lots of other shows. And turn on your phones or your computers. You'll find me someplace.
But every week you are.
Every week I am here with you on Still Toking.
That's right.
And I love it.
We do too.
Wow.
Mr. H.
Yeah, I'm not trying. I think that gummy kicked in.
It looks like it did. You blindfold you with fucking dental floss right now.
Yeah, so go to stilltoking.com. Token with the Dead on Facebook. They'll link you wherever you want to go, man. You know, and check out. Go to YouTube. Check out the animation. I think I reposted that.
Yes, you did.
I think I reposted that. Yeah. So anyway, that's how you get in touch with us.
Right. So, yeah, like Jeff said, go to stilltoking.com. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Or it's not Twitter anymore. It's X, TikTok. I mean, we're just Google us. You'll find us for real. You know, but the best place to go is to the website because you can find out everything you want to know about the novel, the comic books, the TV series, the animation, this amazing show, which is all cataloged there. We want to thank Leon for taking time out of his busy schedule to chat about everything under the sun, literally everything under the sun. Man, I never fucking knew how interesting you were.
Thank you.
You know, and you know,
I was just the publisher that was throwing big parties.
Well, we weren't invited to those either, but no, we were. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But in all seriousness, folks, to all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do so people like us can come up here and do what we do. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. We're out of here.
Have a happy.